Hmm? Little lower? No, not now. I begin with a prayer which enables us to awaken the consciousness within. It's an old Vedic prayer. Everybody knows this prayer. Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Om Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Sthapakaya Cha Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatar Varisthaya Ramakrishna Te Namaha. A hearty welcome to all of you. We have all assembled here for a very important retreat, especially the topic is very important. Because when Sri Ramakrishna was asked on the famous Kalpataru Day, January 1st, 1886, the year he entered into Mahasamadhi. Of course, he entered Mahasamadhi in August, but in January of the same year, which is now celebrated as the Kalpataru Day, he was surrounded by some very close devotees. Mind you, they were not monastic, the would-be monastic disciples. They were all householder disciples, including Girish Ghosh. And they all saw Sri Ramakrishna, who was suffering from cancer of the throat and was very weak, was feeling very weak. But that day, he was in a good mood, and around 3 o'clock, he comes down from his room, and then under the mango tree, some of the disciples, especially Girish Ghosh, who were in the garden house of Kashipur, they fall at his feet. They were surprised to see Sri Ramakrishna immaculately dressed in that famous green coat of his, which is still preserved. And he was under the famous mango tree when Girish Ghosh, out of great spiritual emotion, bows down to him. And then something strange happens. After Girish Ghosh sings praises of Sri Ramakrishna, for Sri Ramakrishna, saying that when he was asked by Sri Ramakrishna, what do you see in me? What kind of divinity do you see in me that you are preaching and telling everyone that I am an avatar? What actually did you see? So Girish Ghosh very humbly replies. He was a great poet. So in very poetic Bengali he says, if Vyasa and Valmiki could not describe the glory of the Lord, though they composed some wonderful books, including Srimad Bhagavatam on Krishna and Valmiki's Ramayana, so many wonderful scriptures. But they could not express the divinity of Rama and Krishna properly. If they could not do it, how can a humble person like me say anything about this? So Sri Ramakrishna was very pleased, and then he blesses all by a blessing which is perhaps the only blessing Sri Ramakrishna gives to all the devotees. Though the Kalpataru Day is celebrated by most of the people, thinking that you make a sankalpa on that day, you ask for whatever you wish. Sankalpa means to have some wish. And being a kalpataru, they think, which is kalpataru means the tree, wish fulfilling tree. So normally every one of us wants God to be like a wish fulfilling tree. We just express our wishes, pray, and God fulfills them. That's what most of us, not all, most of us want that. We have our little desires and we want God to fulfill them with least effort so that we don't have to uh, make efforts to achieve that or get that. But Sri Ramakrishna, when all of them with various ideas in the mind were praying for many things, we do not know what was going on in the minds of all those 30 devotees who had assembled there. But Sri Ramakrishna gave only one blessing. He said, Tomader ar ki bolbo, Tomader chaitanya hok. In Bengal it means, what more shall I say? He knew there are many prayers, and each one of those devotees had something in mind, some deep desire which they wanted to be fulfilled. And they knew that Sri Ramakrishna is in a good mood today. So maybe if he blesses us, we might get those things. And he's a Kalpataru. So that's what they thought. But this blessing which he uttered is very significant because he said, what else shall I bless you with? Tomader Chaitanya hok. Let your consciousness, Chaitanya means consciousness, be awakened. Let the consciousness, the conscious principle in all of you be awakened. That's exactly what Gayatri Mantra means. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam. We pray to the great sun who symbolizes the light of consciousness within, deep within, which we are unable to see or unable to perceive. And we pray to the Mother Gayatri or the sun. And that's one of the most ancient prayers of the Vedas, a universal prayer. And all other prayers and all other spiritual practices, mantras, they follow this idea contained in this prayer that, O Lord, please awaken the consciousness. Dhi means buddhi. So the light of consciousness, the light of wisdom, the light of true understanding, let it be awakened in me. Because that's the only way one can get rid of sorrows on a very permanent basis. Not some temporary solution. God can, obviously, He can give us whatever we wish for. He's much more capable than that. He can give many great things. As Sri Ramakrishna famously said once, there was a king who was praying to God and praying to a king, asking him for some pumpkins and other vegetables. And then somebody told him, if you are going to the king, ask him for jewels, ask him for higher things. He's capable of giving that. Don't ask for this stupid, silly thing. He's capable of giving you jewels, and you are asking him for pumpkins and other things, vegetables. So the idea is this consciousness or living consciously, that's the topic today. Living consciously, why and how? So we'll first try to answer why. The moot question is, are we not living consciously? Because to live consciously, if you have to know the why and how of living consciously, this particular idea, that means something in our lives is not all right. We are not living consciously. That is the implication. Otherwise, why would this topic be chosen? And why would anybody pray for, repeat the Gayatri Mantra? The very idea, the whole essence of the Vedas is contained in the Gayatri. Sri Ramakrishna himself said, the whole of Vedas is condensed in this Gayatri Mantra. So if the Vedas say that, if all the subsequent Upanishads and everything says, gives so much of primacy or importance to consciousness, then there must be a deeper meaning to this word consciousness. For lack of a better word, we are using the word consciousness. Because consciousness would mean different things to different people. For a doctor, it may just mean biological consciousness. If he's unconscious, either he's in coma or maybe he's dead, then we'll say he's not conscious. So that is biological consciousness. So that is not the consciousness that we are speaking of. That's why, for lack of a better word, we say it is consciousness. But the real Sanskrit word is Chaitanya. Chaitanya means the eternal principle or the eternal and essential principle of the Jiva, the Jivatman, that is all beings. So, to express that fully is to live consciously. So, if we were already expressing that fully, then there's no need to know the why and how of living consciously. We are already doing that. The moment the child is born, according to the doctor, he is living consciously because he has been born now and is conscious of his surroundings. Maybe he will agree that his consciousness goes on increasing as he experiences newer and newer things. The child perhaps may not be so much conscious of the world outside him. He needs education. He needs his mother to tell him different things, explain to him. That's how the child becomes more conscious. But he's conscious. That's the popular idea, material idea, or the medical idea, or the biological idea of consciousness. So that everybody understands. So that is not what is meant. Otherwise, everybody of us, the very purpose of this retreat would not be, addressed or fulfilled if we knew how to live consciously. Because the child, as soon as he's born, according to the doctors, till he becomes unconscious for some reason, due to anesthesia or due to any other thing, he is living consciously. That is what we assume. But not according to Vedanta, not according to definitely Sri Ramakrishna. Of course, Vedanta also has a wonderful definition of consciousness. And that is why Sri Ramakrishna on that day, he blessed all of them, irrespective of what those devotees wanted. He said, I can't give you anything better than this because this is the highest. And if my words have some value, and if you have so much faith in me that you want my blessings, then I can't bless you. I can't give you a higher blessing. I can't shower a higher blessing than just pray to the Divine Mother or to God, or to bless you by saying, Tomader Chaitanya Hok, means let all of you live fully conscious lives. So now, that we come to the fundamental problem, are we living consciously or not? If we are not, then we should ask this question, why am I not living consciously? And if I am not living consciously, and if that is a desirable goal, not only according to the Vedas, Bhagavata, every practically teacher, prophet of the world has mentioned this. They might have used other words. For example, Jesus might use the word spirit. That is how the word spiritual has come. So consciousness is a modern word. If you see, Swami Vivekananda has rarely used this word. He, for Chaitanya or Chit, he uses the word spirit. Spirit and matter. So that which is eternal, that which is not changing, that which is not material is spiritual. So how do we do it? One of the ways, obviously, is meditation. Because Swami Vivekananda said, he was defining meditation. He says, when we meditate, we are our real self. That's the only time we are our real self, if we are in a deeply meditative state. And he says, in the dingiest or the dirtiest of places also, if somehow you are able to achieve that meditation and become one with the consciousness or Chaitanya, then that is the real goal that one should aspire for. Because the things of the world, that is the material world, it keeps on changing. It makes us dance to its tune. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are unhappy. But beyond that, there is a state which we sometimes realize accidentally or purposely when we somehow reach the state of deep meditation. So all the attempts that we do, the japa, the spiritual practices, is to progressively read spirit into matter. We are always a mixture of spirit and matter. If there was no spirit within us, no consciousness within us, then Sri Ramakrishna would not have blessed us by saying, Tomadari Chaitanya Hok. It's not that the Chaitanya will come from somewhere outside. It's not manifesting itself fully. It's manifesting biologically. We are active, we are apparently conscious. We are conscious of the people around us. If we are conscious of the whole world around us, we are reacting to it. So obviously, biologically, we are fully conscious. At least when our senses are normal, when our mind is normal. Of course, abnormal psychology will say there are many things which we do unconsciously. And people who are not conscious, when they don't do things in a proper manner, we say that he is unconscious or he is not in the right senses. His mind is not in the right senses. That is why he is behaving. People having dementia and other things. But that is biological consciousness, which we fail to manifest in certain biological conditions. And we think that this person is not fully conscious. He is in a sleepy state, or maybe even while he is awake. We'll find many people not fully conscious, not fully aware of the things around him. So that is why in Bengali, Sri Ramakrishna said, who is a human being? There is a pun on the word in Bengali. We say manush. Jar on hosh. Hosh means awareness. So one who is aware of, whose mind is aware of the pure consciousness or the Chaitanya, he is a real Manush. Others are Manush, they are biologically human beings, but they are not human beings because their mind is not fully conscious. So, this is Sri Ramakrishna's definition of consciousness, which is what Vedanta says. We are not fully conscious. So, why should we be conscious? Because that is the only state where we can be free from all sorrows, all troubles, and that is the goal which is preached by not only the Vedas, all the Gita, all the scriptures. They point to this eternal truth that you have to feel yourself or experience that unitary, or you may say absolute consciousness, which is your birthright. You are actually that. But due to ignorance, our consciousness, the spirit that is within, is reflected very poorly in matter, in our bodies, in our other people, in the material things. So the more the spirit is read into matter, the more spiritual you become. So the whole idea of spirituality is to manifest that spirit within, The more we do, the more we live consciously. And the more we live consciously, the more spiritual we are, and the more happy we are, the less we are affected by the sorrows of the world. So there is no other solution except to live and be converted into spirit. Whether you read the Bible or Gita or Vedas, they pray for thee, buddhi, which is nothing but consciousness. And Jesus says, kingdom of God is the kingdom of spirit. It's of the spirit, it's not of matter. Otherwise, he would not have bothered to, he would, he didn't bother to preserve his body because he knew the what is being destroyed is just a physical body. The essential consciousness nobody can destroy because he had achieved that spirit. He was established in spirit. He was established in pure consciousness. So it did not matter to him or Sri Ramakrishna, who was suffering from cancer. And in spite of that excruciating pain, Turyananji, his disciple, found out that I see that you are feigning or you are pretending to be sad. But I have somehow seen you that there is your mind is full of joy. And Sri Ramakrishna appreciates that this disciple of mine could read that the illness is of the body. And maybe it will affect the mind because it affects the body. Mind is nothing but subtle matter. So it may affect the mind, it may affect the body, but the spirit is not affected by this. So if you establish yourself in the spirit, or as when Sri Ramakrishna said, Tomader Chaitanya Hok, what he meant was that if you realize yourself as pure consciousness, then all the sorrows will be eternally gone from your life. There's no other way. The only way you can do that is to establish yourself in the spirit or pure consciousness. So the answer to the question whether we are living consciously, it is a no. We are not living, we are living consciously. There is some biological consciousness, obviously, but if you observe carefully, many of the things and the acts or whatever we do, whatever we think, half of these things or a majority of these things are done in an unconscious manner, in an automatic manner, in an instinctive manner. It's not that we are absolutely unconscious of the surroundings. Many times you will see a kind of absent-mindedness is there, and we do things mechanically. That is why most of the Buddhist organization, they give so much importance. For them, the only thing that matters is mindfulness or awareness. So all their meditation techniques are based on this idea of holding on to that consciousness without break. So they go to the extremes of being mindful. That they say you have to be mindful when you breathe, you have to be mindful when you feel something, you have to be mindful when you do gardening, you should be mindful. So what is the need if you are anyway doing it? So many people are doing so many activities. But the idea is we are not mindful when we are doing it. That makes a huge difference. So living consciously and acting consciously with full consciousness of the act, with your whole thought, emotion, and willpower attached to the action that you are doing. When you reach that state, then you are on the way to lead a conscious life, living consciously. So that is what, in general, the topic that we are about to discuss means. Living consciously, how and why. Why and how. Why means the only reason why we should live consciously is that living unconsciously, especially in the context of Buddhism and other religions which are based on meditation. That's why they give so much importance to meditation, because when you meditate, for the time being at least, you have to forget the sorrows, the problems of the world around you. Otherwise, you can't meditate. You see, it's a simple meditation if you try to attempt. What you are doing is driving away all your sorrows, your troubles, anything that causes sorrow. You are trying to push it out from your mind and just to meditate on the pure consciousness that is in your heart. If you have some Ishta, you will be meditating on the bright form of that Ishta, which makes meditation easier. But if you don't believe in God, even then, there are techniques in Buddhism, there are techniques in Advaita where this pure consciousness, living consciously, can be practiced by being mindful of every thought, by being mindful of every emotion that arises, just watching them as a sakshi. So that is why they say awareness meditation, or a meditation which enables you to watch. And obviously, for that, you need to take some time from our busy schedule, because if you are unconsciously doing so many things, which we do unconsciously, there's a beautiful book by Thich Nhat Hanh. He wrote that book when they were suffering during the Vietnam War. It was a horrible time for the prisoners who never knew, who did not know what is going to be their fate, whether they will live, whether they'll be executed, or the suffering was terrible. Many of them lost their minds. So this Vietnamese monk, who was allowed some pieces of paper and a pen, that was the only luxury they had. So he wrote some very inspiring lines and circulated and tried to convince these people who were suffering. Practically, many of them committed suicide, or many of them could not tolerate, because this kind of uncertainty, this kind of suffering, prisoners of war, they'll understand what kind of suffering. They had absolutely no access to anything. And so much of uncertainty a person cannot live with. With all the certainties of life, which we think or uncertainties of life, still we live on the hope that things will be better. So we have something that motivates us to live. But if you are in a prison, especially in a jail full of war prisoners, where there's so much of uncertainty, those people were really difficult. It was very difficult for this Vietnamese monk who was caught along with them. But fortunately, he had this philosophy. So, that beautiful book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, he said, I'll show you a miracle which can help you negotiate this sorrow, which is uncertain. And I am also part of it. So, I also do not know. But somehow I've learned, thanks to the great masters, especially Buddha, this living consciously, or living in a mindful, with full of mindfulness. That's why that book now has been named. It's a very popular book, translated into several languages. It's known as The Miracle of Mindfulness, and that saved a lot of people. I mean, at least that allowed them to somehow, till the war was over and the prisoners were released. Many of them died, of course. But still, this small booklet, not booklet, he distributed those pages, and then the prisoners used to read. Many of them found solace, and later on, when he he was released, his followers or his disciples decided to publish it in book form. It's a wonderful book. So it may not teach you the technique of meditation, but it gives you a preliminary idea of what living consciously is. It will definitely, it is a say primary book for people who are in this extreme condition. How somehow his idea was to make them survive, not let them not be depressed and kill themselves. Let them at least survive. The same thing happened in the World War II, when the people who were sent to gas chambers they also had to suffer a lot. So those are extreme situations where living consciously gave a ray of hope to these prisoners. So for normal human beings, where we think we are living consciously, is it really necessary? That's the question. Now, in India, it is taken for granted, though we do all this Gayatri Mantra and all mechanically, it's more or less a ritual for us. But at least consciously or unconsciously, our culture, which is based on spirituality, explains to us, or at least tries to introduce us to this idea of Satchidananda or consciousness, the importance of consciousness in our daily life, which we call spirituality, Adhyatmikta. Though we do not understand its true implications, we somehow practice it. So we are familiar with it. At least we expect our children and our people who live in India and the subcontinent there. We assume that we know a little bit of what consciousness is. But when Swami Vivekananda came to England, I just want to give these examples because I was recently reading a book of one of the foremost Western disciples of Swami Vivekananda, who really understood this. Not only understood this, it can be an excellent example to modern people who are now, there's no East or West now. The whole world has become a global culture. So the problems which the West faced when this disciple met Swami Vivekananda is pretty much what Indians are facing now, whether they are in India or whether they are abroad. So the whole distinction between Eastern values and Western values have gone. Completely gone, I can assure you that. Because in the East, you will find more people who are more Western than the Western people themselves. So we used to pride ourselves, so at least when Swami Vivekananda came, he told these people that we may not be materially strong as the Western people, but we have contributed, we have our own contribution to the world, and that is spirituality. It was true at that time, but I doubt if it is true today, because spirituality is a common property of all. And the beginning was made in England, in fact. In America, of course, this lady, Josephine MacLeod, who was a Scottish origin, but born and brought up in America, but she never forgot her roots. She stayed for most of her life. She stayed in England many years, and of course, she was traveling all over the world to carry Swami Vivekananda's message practically single-handedly. If you have time and if you read that book, you'll get an idea of how she took every word. In fact, after her first meeting, because these ideas were new to the Western people, they had some idea of some yoga, something, and they knew an Indian monk had come, and New York, Frank Leggett, who was her brother in law, and Betty Leggett, that famous Leggett family, who were lifelong followers of Sri Ramakrishna, and both sisters. It was a wonderful combination, Betty and uh, Josephine MacLeod, Joe. They were MacLeods, but since she was married to a Leggett, and these two sisters, and of them Joe, who lived till the ripe old age of 92. And if you see the spirit with which she practiced, she lived consciously, I can say. I'm giving this example because there are a lot of Indian monks and Indian disciples of Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda who have led these lives because they had the background. They knew what spirituality is. They had some background. That either read the Gita or followed some spiritual path, and then they came to. So spirituality was very common for those disciples. But for a Western woman who had absolutely, of course, she had exposure to Christianity, and perhaps that made her take the teachings, the universal teachings of Swami Vivekananda, she took it seriously, perhaps because of whatever little exposure she had to the wonderful message of Christ, that is the domination of consciousness or spirit over matter. That is the eternal message of India, which, whether it is Jesus, Buddha, or any other Sufi saint, they all preach the same thing, that the spirit always has to dominate over matter if we want to be happy. That is, we have to see that we lead consciously, expressing that spirit or consciousness in our life. Of course, when Buddha and Jesus and Krishna and all the great prophets do, they live 100% conscious life. Sri Ramakrishna in this age. We may do 1/16th or 100th, as Swami Vivekananda said. It's a progressive reading. I agree, we are material. We see a little bit of spirit in the matter that we love so much. But as we progress spiritually, we are supposed to read a little bit of consciousness or spirit into that matter. The matter remains the same. So coming to Jo, when she first heard Swami Vivekananda speak about this living consciously or consciousness, this was a new idea for her. Having been educated in this materially prosperous America of those days, and also England, where she had her connections. In fact, she lived for a very long time in Stratford-upon-Avon, the very house, Hallscroft, where Shakespeare's daughter, it belongs to Shakespeare's daughter. So they were very rich, her brother-in-law, and she herself inherited a lot of wealth. They had some homes in Ridgely Manor, where Swami Vivekananda stayed for several weeks. And practically till he was alive, and he didn't live long, 1895, say 94 to 1902, they might have met him only for 6 years. But Jo says that 6 years is too much. One day was enough in his company. So that is how she caught this idea of consciousness. She became deeply fascinated by this idea, and immediately, because when they take this seriously, she writes, when I first heard Vivekananda, the first sentence that he spoke was, for me, it was absolute truth. The second sentence he spoke was absolute truth. And every sentence that I heard from him appeared to me to be absolute truth. Nothing else mattered. See, coming from a Western lady, very prosperous, very rich lady, would have, they were very aristocratic by any means. And she says, had he not come, he says, Swami Vivekananda came to America or came to the West to set me free. I was searching for that freedom, which I was not able to find. He released my spirit from the bondage of the body. And this attitude she continued till the age of 92. When she died in one of our monasteries in Hollywood, Swami Prabhavanandaji was one of the disciples of Swami Brahmananda. His disciples, they looked after her very well. She was just had no home for herself. I mean, she had several homes, but she never considered anything to be her home. She had a home, as I said, where her sister died, this Hallscroft in Stratford-upon-Avon. And there, in her biography, there's something very interesting, how she lived consciously. When Swamiji says one has to live consciously, after that you will find her mixing with all sorts of people, including India, going to the slums, sitting, eating with those poor people. Wherever she went, she used to carry whatever money she could. And she loved to see, when she understood that it is the spirit within which is more important. Worship the spirit by the spirit. That is what Jesus says. The real religion or real spirituality is, don't see people as bodies. They are spirits. Essentially, they are spirits. And if you realize the spirit within, then you worship the spirit by the spirit. There's a beautiful book by Ashokananda which says, worship of the spirit by the spirit. That means once you have understood that you are pure consciousness, then you don't see the human beings, then you don't see defects. It's very easy to say don't see defects. Holy Mother said, Karo dosh dekho na, don't see others' faults. But you can't do that. Because if we see the spirit, will not see faults. But because we are not living consciously, we are living partly conscious lives. We are living more in the world of matter than spirit, whether it is the body, whether it is the material things that we identify ourselves with. So we really don't read spirit into matter. We read matter into spirit. Man is essentially spirit, but we try to judge or evaluate a man by his material covering. Whereas Jo, after she heard this, Josephine, very often, Betty, her sister, had to tell her, "See, you belong to such a respectable." Betty was married to Frank, and then the daughters and son, they were married to the Earl of Sandwich. Normally those days you could not be seen mixing with commoners, common people, as they said. Aristocrats were very proud of their lineage. So this Josephine would be seen just leaving the house and sitting on the streets like a vagabond and mixing with all sorts of people, showing tremendous interest in the people. There were so many poor people in those days. So she didn't make any distinction, whether it was the Earl of Sandwich or the Lord Margeson, who was married to Frances, the daughter of Betty. She mixed with them also. But because Swami Vivekananda taught her to live consciously, she would see these big aristocratic people. She saw the consciousness in them, not their position, their wealth. So and then many of them in that biography, they say that she was so fascinated and devoted to Swami Vivekananda that wherever she went, she traveled a lot. She translated his Raj Yoga, which is one of the main books which enables us to learn how to live consciously. We'll come to that because Swami Vivekananda wrote this book and he explained what consciousness, subconscious, unconscious, and superconscious is in that book. It's one of the best and the first book where one, through Raj Yoga, through the practice of meditation, because he wanted to leave behind a book which will give some concrete way how to live consciously. As I said, why to live consciously we have understood, but how to do it, there's a huge difference between knowing that I should live consciously and how to do it. So that for that you need to read Raj Yoga and the lives of great people who lived consciously. The great master, as I said, and the gospel and so many other books, the Bible, for example. If you read between the lines, you get ideas where you understand what it means to live consciously. Now, this Josephine used to go to on the streets, as I said, though they tried to stop her. He said, "You shouldn't be going with your expensive dress and sitting with those poor people." He said, "They are not poor, they are spirits." Did the Swami not say that? I see the spirits. She always, with the twinkling eyes that she had, she used to show so much interest. In fact, she was hardly seen to be meditating. Contrary to popular idea that spiritual people are always want solitude. No doubt Swami Vivekananda, in one place, he says, all my other disciples, I mean the Western disciples, they had to struggle to be free. But when Jo came, she was already free. All it required was to speak a few sentences, and then, as you said, in our Upanishads, it is there. The Guru will make you, the Rishi will make you work hard, work out, exhaust all your karma, and then he'll utter the Mahavakya. After he feels that you are like Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahman. They are simple words, but it doesn't make sense to any one of us. Till one gets rid of all the impurities, and when the Guru feels, then he will utter the Mahavakya, the four Mahavakyas. All mean the same thing. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, then Prajnanam Brahma, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. All this main Mahavakyas, they are uttered by the Guru, by the Rishi of the Upanishad, only after he is convinced that his disciple is fit. So here is a similar case where Swamiji, whatever he spoke about God in Ridgely Manor, where she and the New York classes where she went, she says, the first time I heard him, I felt this is the truth. When will it happen? If she had not been free, or if she had not been spiritually awakened even before coming to Vivekananda, this would not have happened. They would have heard, like Betty and others, obviously others also heard the same talk. But it became an obsession with her. And using all her resources, whatever she had, plenty of resources, thanks to her sister and her brother-in-law, who was very rich, the Leggett family, and then later on the royal family with whom they had relationships. So she was never short of wealth. But if you read the biography, you will find every one of these words which changed her life, she translated, helped, sponsored, or gave money to translate these books in 7 languages: Spanish, German, and not only print these books but distribute it. Because Raj Yoga was published when she was alive, when Swamiji was alive, and some other books on Jnana which she delivered in England. So she was so keen that, see, this is what really matters. This is absolute truth. And I have learned to, thanks to the grace of my Guru, I have learned this idea that to live consciously is the only worthwhile sadhana that one should do, the worthwhile effort that one should put. And that gave her immense peace, immense freedom. As Swamiji, she herself used to say that the whole world, right from her childhood, she had a very bad childhood, very difficult childhood, and the sisters, somehow they were together, and then fortune favored them, and then they came out of poverty, and many things happened in their life. But one unique thing about her, maybe she was already prepared, was nothing could bind her. She was always free and hated the idea of any kind of material bondage. Though she lived in with so much of riches, the riches could not touch her. And then people thought she was crazy. Many of them, because of her constantly harping on this idea of living consciously, trying to manifest the spirit within, and always trying to literally force others. Whether it is she used to travel to France, Germany, Europe, the whole of Europe. She had been to so many places even before meeting Swami Vivekananda. So she had the money to do that. But later, after meeting him, she managed to get most of these books translated. So many celebrities, there are innumerable celebrities, but not for name and fame. She just met them as she would meet a beggar on the street. Because she felt that these are different manifestations. Some may be very rich, some may be, but still they are equally ignorant as the beggar on the street when it comes to spirituality. So that message of Holy Mother, where you don't see fault with others, you look at this world as if a child would look at wonderment. When you see a child which is full of divinity, he doesn't discriminate between rich people, poor friends. All these things come to us when we grow up, when society teaches us, robs us of our ignorance, as Swamiji says. Society robs us of our ignorance. The poor child is born with so much of universal ideas. He sees consciousness everywhere. But unfortunately, we force that child to give up his liberal attitude, his universal attitude, where he has no choices. He just sees the whole world as one family. Take a young child, for example. We teach the child, he is yours, he is not yours, you have to be careful, and so many things. So Swamiji says that innocence, that seeing of this whole world as one manifestation of universal consciousness, the child is born with, because that is something which never leaves us. And Swamiji says, unfortunately, his upbringing and the world robs him of that wonderful quality that he had. And then spirituality is trying to regain that. So we have to undo what our education, what the society around us did, telling us that we are not conscious beings, we are beings who are, we cannot live without matter and all those things. So more and more of materialism is read into the poor child's consciousness. And then when he comes of the age of 6 or 8, as I said many times, our society had devised a method by which he, at least by repetition of this Gayatri Mantra, is conscious that apart from all the achievements that I will achieve through my education, at least this idea that I am pure consciousness, that I have to awaken this consciousness, let it never leave me. Because he has to earn a living, he has to develop the skills. And that he has to deal with material life. Nothing wrong with that. As Joe said, she was surrounded by luxury, she was surrounded by money, she was everything she had. But she had one goal in mind. So this is a particularly a wonderful example because it comes from a material world, a material civilization, and how contact with Swami Vivekananda, who learned from his guru how to live consciously every moment of his life, transformed this westernized lady, who the rest of her life, if you see, all her actions show that she never lost enthusiasm. The moment you start dealing with material things, they have a tendency to drag you down. But if you see matter as spirit, the more you manifest the spirit in matter, then it doesn't really matter what you are dealing with. You're dealing with good people, doesn't matter. Dealing with bad people, doesn't matter. You're dealing with difficult people, doesn't matter. As long as you see that the spirit within never changes, within me and within the people whom you are dealing with. So that gives tremendous strength and courage. That wonderful life shows that it is possible and it is essential that one should live consciously. So, how to do it now? We'll briefly try to find out based on Raj Yoga. So, I'll just tell you what Swami Vivekananda says in the Raj Yoga. He says, as Patanjali says, of course, he based on Patanjali's great yoga psychology. There are three or four states. We'll not discuss the fourth state now, which is more philosophical, but the three basic states which Western psychology accepts. So, Raj Yoga says there is one, we have a mind, we have only one mind, but apparently our mind is made of different layers of consciousness. They are not equal. There are certain functions of the mind. For example, Western psychology says our mind has the capacity to think, cognition. That is the fundamental distinction they made, the Western psychologists. Then there is emotion. Every person who is a human being has some emotion. Some have more, some have less. But it's nonetheless a function of the mind. Then we have what is known as willpower, the capacity to convert thoughts and emotions into action. For example, I have a wonderful heart. I have a wonderful capacity to think. And I know I can perhaps prepare a scheme where I can help people. My heart tells me that I should help the underprivileged people, and I have the ideas which I can use to help them, but I don't have a willpower. Then what happens is, this is a simple example I'm giving. So, in spite of having a highly developed emotion or heart, a wonderful thinking capacity, intelligence, but for lack of will, I don't get up and do that, what my heart tells me. My heart tells me many things, but my willpower is not strong enough. So this third faculty of the mind, which is known as will, thinking, feeling, and willing. Now, so far, yoga psychology agrees, and they teach us how to deal with the emotions, how not allow negative emotions like fear, jealousy, envy, which are harmful, which take you down, which do not help you to manifest the Chaitanya within or the consciousness within, which does not help you to lead happy lives, blissful lives. So, how to deal with those negative emotions, how to counter it with positive emotions, all these things Western psychology also will teach you. So, also yoga psychology will teach you. Then, how to think properly, how to think rationally. See, when somebody says something, or then if we are instinctive in our nature, if then we'll follow the animals like the dogs. Somebody barks and the dog barks. So somebody shouts at you, you shout back. But it's your thinking will make you pause for a moment. They call it buddhi. You use your rational faculty to just understand why is that person behaving the way he is. Should I react because he has said something, or should I use my intelligence and do something which is more sensible? So that is using rationality to manifest this consciousness. Then there is emotion, as I said. There are good emotions, there are bad emotions. And we know how bad emotions can disturb us: sorrow, uh, jealousy, and all those things. They may be, we cannot help, and these emotions control us. No, and that makes us lead peaceless lives. We know that, but we do not know how to deal with it. So, Raj Yoga teaches first how to deal with your thoughts, your thinking capacity, rational capacity. Try to reason as far as you can. Try to find out whether are you reasonable enough. So that is one way of conscious living. You consciously deliberate, unlike the animals, we deliberate upon certain incidents or certain words that are uttered, certain actions that are done. So we have the capacity to pause, think, use our buddhi, wisdom to react in a proper way, informed way, well informed way. So we are a little more conscious. So if we are unconscious, the tendency or the characteristic of an unconscious living is a highly reactive life. A person who is unreasonable, you can't convince him. His emotions control him. His thoughts control him. His limited ignorance controls him. And you can't convince a person, even if you wish well, you want to tell him this is harmful for you, you find it difficult because he is very instinctive. So that shows, according to psychology, we are not living consciously. If we are living consciously, we will pause, we will think, we will use our emotions, and then we will use our willpower and decide whether we should act or react, which may be harmful for us. So, all these things, Swami Vivekananda says, and Patanjali says, and the whole yoga philosophy says that learning to react in a very well informed way by controlling your mind, somehow by controlling your emotions, by controlling your thoughts, by controlling your willpower, the capacity to act, by controlling these three. And there is a fourth power which I'll come to. So, by controlling this, Western psychology also agrees that a person who is psychologically sound, that's what counseling does. The counselors, they do this to tell him be rational, don't be reactive. Don't be reactive like the animals. Animals lead, you can say, they do not lead conscious life. Though there is biological consciousness, but they are not conscious of uh, of how they should react and the consequences of their actions. They do everything out of instinct. So if a person does more out of instinct rather than deliberation, or it is known as viveka, or discrimination, discernment, the more he has these qualities, the more consciously he is living. So his living becomes conscious when he is fully aware, not only of the consequences of what he is going to do or say or feel, but also the consequences not only for him or for the others also. So such a person, if you have such a person in the family, you say he is a very wise person. He brings some kind of balance in our unbalanced instinctive behavior of everyone else. So such wise man can transform himself and transform others. He is living consciously and maybe following his example, others, if they have the wisdom to understand why this person is so calm, so collected, he never gets disturbed, whereas anything that happens upsets me. Why that is because one lives consciously, another lives instinctively. So that is the idea that you have to understand. But why does one not live consciously? How how to do that? How to understand? For example, I'm giving the classic example from the Pandavas and Kauravas. After the battle, Krishna, who is neutral, obviously, who is fully conscious of who he was, and also was the reason why Arjuna was so stable. And because he was with the Pandavas, Yudhishthira and all, they were balanced. But not that he hated Duryodhana. They were all cousins. But Duryodhana tells him something very significant, which shows what happens if we don't live consciously. He says, Janami dharmam nachame pravrutti. I know my intelligence, my emotions, my training, the wonderful teaching my guru has given me, who taught the Pandavas as well. I know what is dharma. I know what I should have done to prevent this war. Janami dharmam nachame pravrutti. But somehow you tell me this is a problem you have created. He's blaming God. When you can't blame yourself, you blame God. For So he says, I know what is good, but I cannot follow it. Somehow my nature is such. All he's saying is, I am very instinctive by nature. I'm not able to live consciously. Otherwise, I would not have quarreled. I could have prevented this whole war. Janami adharma. I know what is adharma. Nachame nivrutti, but I can't leave it. I know envy is bad, dishonesty is bad, all the negative qualities. I know what is good, what is bad. But somehow I am not able to live consciously. So, what is the result? What is the reason? Patanjali says it is because of the unconscious. Each mind has a conscious level at which it should live. If we are 100% conscious, then we should be living consciously. But what is pulling us and making us do what we should not do, like Duryodhana's predicament? He knows, I know what is to be done, but what is pulling me? Something is making me run after evil things. I know what is good, what is dharma, and I appreciate our elder brother Yudhishthira for that. He was known as Dharmaraja. He was following dharma always. But he can do it, but somehow I can't do it. That is because the reason Raj Yoga gives is this unconscious, which is part of the chitta, that portion of our mind, which is the result of all our past actions, conscious as well as unconscious, mind you. We have done many unconscious actions. That is instinctive actions. We have quarreled with so many people, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. Every one of them has been stored in the memory, in the unconscious. And depending on the accumulated samskaras or accumulated tendencies, you will behave in a particular way unless you are not conscious. If you leave everything, if you leave your mind a free hand, then the unconscious will prevail. That is what exactly happened in Duryodhana's case. He knew that this will lead to disaster. And I am not justified in grabbing all the property. But he says the samskaras were so powerful, which he has, of course, inherited from the previous life. So, Swami Vivekananda says, if you want to live consciously, that is, with full of wisdom, then you have to take care of those sunken thoughts. He calls it sunken thoughts. They have sunk deep. They're not apparently seen. Apparently, Duryodhana and when they were studying together, obviously they were cousins. They were equally strong, equally good, or maybe equally competent. Nobody realized that Duryodhana had the capacity to kill, to do actions which will lead to such a terrible war. So, where were these qualities? They were, according to yoga, we cannot live consciously because our unconscious thoughts are pulling us down. So, how do we deal with that? Rajoga doesn't just show us the problem and say that is you are because of your unconscious, so you are helpless. So, that Sri Krishna could have advised Duryodhana. The whole Bhagavad Gita and the behavior of Arjuna and how Krishna guides is a lesson on this yoga, lesson on Vedanta and yoga, which is the technical side of Vedanta, where they show it's one does not have to be helpless. One may be forced to lead a unconscious life, or maybe the unconscious chitta or the very powerful impulses that you have accumulated. See, we have accumulated. Nobody else has done for us. Over a period of right from childhood, the evil habits. But Swami Vivekananda says, and Patanjali also says, that because the unconscious has a control over our conscious living, you should be positive and use that principle to put a lot of good things into your unconscious so that they can cancel out each other, and then your life will be peaceful. So that is how conscious living. So this has to be done consciously. So meditation, if you just do unconsciously, which most of us do, we nearly doze off and then some unconscious mantra is going on or some practice we do, mostly unconsciously, that's not going to help. It's only the conscious action that we do, the conscious thought, the conscious good deed, the conscious meditation. So that is why the Buddhists give so much of importance. So it doesn't matter whether you meditate on God or not. Are you aware? Are you fully awake? They go to extreme, go to take extreme steps to see that you don't doze off or you don't lose your awareness. They give so much of importance to this conscious living that the master, if he understands that you are not conscious of what you are doing or what you are when you are meditating, he'll just give you a big slap. That is how fearful they are. They cannot even just the fear of the slap, nice slap, because the master somehow understands the vibrations. So this fellow is doing gardening, but he's not aware of his what he's doing. He's thinking something else. Like Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna gave a nice slap to Rani Rasmani because she was sitting in the Kali temple and thinking of some lawsuit. So Thakur, like a small child, he could immediately understand this lady is coming to the temple, sitting inside in front of the Divine Mother, and I'm singing such a song. Suddenly, like a child, he went and such a revered lady, he goes and gives a nice slap to her. Anybody else would have been upset, but she understood that this Sri Ramakrishna has some quality. How did he know that I was unconscious? I was not conscious of the song that was being sung, the prayer that was being going on, that the worship that is going on, and sitting in the temple, my mind is somewhere else. That is, of course, an extreme case. When we meditate, nobody comes. That is why Ashokanand used to make fun. You know, some brahmacharis who are very fond of ritualistic worship, they said, I find puja wonderful. Puja is the best spiritual practice. I feel like doing puja day and night. Why? Because I'm always with God. So then he said, no, in fact, puja is the most difficult thing. You can serve God in different ways. For example, he told the brahmachari or the monastic that it is better you serve God by doing some accounting work or typing work. Because if you make mistakes in your seva or in your worship, the person who has asked you to type will point out the mistake. So you'll do it carefully. You'll do it with full awareness, full consciousness. You're living consciously, because if you are unconscious even for a second, your accounts will not tally. So, in fact, he said it is through work you will be more practicing spirituality better than puja. Then, what about puja then? I do consciously. He said, you may do consciously, but if you make a mistake, say some wrong mantra, unfortunately, Thakur doesn't come and slap you because he's in the image, he's in a picture. So Ashokanji says the danger is you can go on doing mistakes and bear the consequences when you do ritualistic puja because there's no supervisor. In case of Rani Rasmani, Thakur was there. He could read the mind and he gave a slap. But when we do puja, God alone knows what we are thinking of. Maybe we are thinking of, oh, I have to deposit this money in the bank, or maybe if I have a business, I have a meeting tomorrow. We are doing arti and everything, fine. But Ashokanji says there nobody is going to tell you that you are not aware. Whereas in your office work also, even the most secular work, if you make a mistake, your boss will catch you. So you will be more conscious. In the hospital, a doctor cannot be unconscious. If he does anything without alertness, the patient is going to die and you will have to bear the consequences. So, in fact, it is easier to manifest this consciousness in our day-to-day life. This is what is known as living consciously. No amount of puja will give you that. That is why Ashokanji, many people misunderstood. Why is he discouraging people? In fact, he did not give so much importance because he says, I know what the pujaris do. They go on doing puja and people think, oh, they are doing such a wonderful job because they are sitting in the presence of God. But if they do perfectly, of course, there's nothing like that. Sri Ramakrishna also did puja, but his puja was different. He would not be distracted by anything else when he was doing puja. But for us, I think the secular work that we do, we have many checks. If you make any mistake, there will be people to catch you. That means God comes in another form and catches you. Whereas there, you have to depend on the image, which obviously, for most of us, the image is inert. So we may go on making lapses in our puja and ultimately bear the consequences without our being conscious of that. So that is conscious living. So that's why when I mentioned about Jo, she was very particular. She did not feel that she should sit in a monastery. Even when she went to Belur Math, she would hardly be seen. She would go just walk in Swami Vivekananda's room, though he was not there at that time, and think of some teaching that he had told her long ago. And nobody could stop her. She had built a small house, Legate House, and some other buildings there. And she had so free access. She was not even worried what will these monks say, because she was free. They knew that here is a lady who has fully imbibed the consciousness that was Swami Vivekananda. And that is why he said you were already free when you came here. So that shows conscious living is something which has to be acquired for most of us, but it can be natural for many blessed souls, especially those who came in touch with Swamiji. Swamiji could give that conscious touch to everyone. Sara Bull and there's so many other people. Even Thakur, just by touching Narendra, he made him realize that consciousness. So this is how through yoga, and yoga says it is a long process. We have Kriya Yoga, we have Japa, we have meditation. So all these means, Karma Yoga, we have Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Through all these processes, what we are actually doing is to be a little more conscious in our attitude towards the world, towards people around us, and towards ourselves. Our first duty is towards ourselves. That's why Swamiji told Nivedita, because she was very keen in doing some work and then fighting for freedom. So many external activities, attract a person. So in a letter, in one of the letters he writes to her, she says things are not, when we try to set right things around us, and when we see we don't succeed, we get impatient. Whereas Swamiji gives this idea. Two lines he writes in two of his letters to Nivedita, which gives the gist of living consciously. He says, in one place, he says, try to manifest this divinity within, and then you will see, because she was complaining about all the circumstances, about the poverty, about the money, lack of money for her school. So many issues she was facing. So Swamiji consoles her and says, try to manifest the divinity within, that is, live consciously, and see how everything else will be harmoniously arranged around it. And then he says, she asks in one of the letters, what is your message? What exactly have you uh, to say to the Western world, to the Eastern world? What are you doing? What is your life's mission? He says, I would not define my life's mission, but if you insist on that, I'll say, my goal is to teach people their divinity, to manifest it so that they live consciously and make it manifest in every moment of their life, not while you are meditating. When you are meditating, if you do it properly, obviously you are going a step towards that consciousness. But the real challenge is in every moment, as Joe did, whether it was watching somebody, whether it was giving these ideas, no matter how much, even her sister Betty sometimes used to get bored. They said, this is the problem with Joe. She will always talk of God, God, Spirit, God, Spirit. And we used to say, we are not fun anymore. The younger generations, they wanted fun. Talking about God is not fun. But for her, that was fun. She could see God peeping through all these people, difficult people, good people. She made no distinction because she saw that conscious principle shining through them in different ways, each one struggling to manifest that consciousness and make it uh, express it in every moment of life. So for her, every moment was a spiritual sadhana. Whether she was in this continent, there's a joke. She had a big uh, pendant sort of thing. In those days, she used to hang it on her neck. And inside, they were curious, what do you have inside? That's a big one, big pendant. And very nicely, she would fold different notes, different currencies of different countries. Because she said, I never know where I'll be tomorrow. So I may need dollars, I may need rupees, I may need something. So I had the currency of almost every country. Uh, and I could just, at short notice, used to pick her bag, board the next suddenly. So because she was seeing the divine consciousness everywhere. No land was of course she loved India. Many times she took her nieces and everyone who had not seen India. That was, and to especially when Holy Mother was alive. So she wanted everyone, this Alberta and her sister's daughter, Hollister, though they were not spiritual. She said, no, you have to meet Srima Sharda Devi. She is still alive. Swamiji, unfortunately, you people did not meet much. He passed away before. But I know there are the inspiration that Swamiji got from Holy Mother. So many, if you see her life, so many times suddenly she'll take a decision. Sometimes we stay in France, sometimes stay in. But wherever she went, she lived a very, very conscious life. Conscious life, consciousness, full of consciousness of the divinity within, which she could understand after not only a few meetings, the first meeting itself. He says, I the first word he uttered was truth for me. The second line sentence, the third sentence, and everything that I heard from him was absolute truth. It could not be otherwise. So imagine what kind of mental preparation she had, what kind of consciousness she had manifest, so that they could understand this great principle of the Vedas and Vedanta, which has taken our rishis hundreds and thousands of years, and books, so many books. We read Vedanta, we listen to wonderful talks, but how much of that consciousness or the spirit do we manifest? That is the moot question. We may hear all our life, which Joe never did. For her, three sentences of Swamiji were enough. Because she found that these things have to be practiced. And I can practice it in the streets of England or the streets of America or even the slums of India, where she used to go and be equally comfortable. So when Swamiji, there's another joke, and I'll end on a lighter note. We should not be too serious. So when Swamiji came for 10 weeks, the last visit, they were very fascinated that Swamiji has agreed to come to take some rest. He was nearing the end of his life. So he goes to Ridgely Manor. And Betty, like the normal Europeans or normal Americans would do, she was thinking of making Swami very comfortable. You see, they think that is the famous story of Martha and Mary. You know, Martha and Mary, when Jesus came, she was so excited, Mary, that she was sitting and listening to the wonderful words of Jesus. Whereas the other sister was very keen to be a housekeeper and just clean everything, prepare good food, and she was so busy. And then she was very angry on Mary. See, I am doing everything and you are sitting there and doing nothing. Then Jesus stopped her. He said, she knows the value of spirit. She is doing the right thing. You are doing all this paraphernalia, material things. Similarly, Joe, there's a similar incident. Joe and Betty, both sisters, were preparing for the great arrival of Swamiji. She was so excited, and I'll end on that lighter note. So she was very keen. If you go to Ridgely Manor, you can see the table, everything is as it is. The sofa where Swamiji sat, and being belonging to the richest family of America, families, one of the richest families, they had very expensive crockeries, how ice cream should be served, how everything. She was very particular, this Betty. Then that was too much for her because so many things she has to do alone, and she was shouting at Joe, who was least bothered. She was said, "Why? Why do you bother? Let all the guests sit down and eat chapati like they do in India." Say in India they're all happy. They sit down and eat. So let them eat. That was her solution. Means her mind was on a totally different plane. She could she could read through this so-called, of course, it was very natural. The Europeans, they had this high standard of living. So they wanted the guests who came to meet Swamiji, they should have all this pick and span, all the beautiful things. She was meticulously planning. She was sincere, no doubt. And she also helped a lot. But you see how free Joe was. She says, why? And even in Belur Math, when she went, they they knew that she is not used to sitting down, so they used to have nice sofa and all. But she never bothered. She once slept on the floor many times. She was so free that nothing. She says, if all the swamis and all the poor people of India do that, then why can't I do? So that shows that living consciously is possible, provided we have an idea of what living consciously means and what it entails, what it really means to, what do we really gain by living consciously? Because that is the only thing that we ought to do, as Sri Ramakrishna said, Tomader Chaitanya Hok. So if by some chance we understand this principle and try to live that, rather than just read about it, because these principles have to be lived. Though it is the difficult part is to live, because our unconscious, as I said, Patanjali says the unconscious is always pulling us down. So we have to take care of those sunken thoughts, deal with them, and that is what spiritual practices actually do. So I'll conclude. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Hmm. Some question answers, then we'll do some little meditation.
Announcement. You know, you mentioned how the Pujari could continue on looking defending the deity. Would not his antinomian correct? His purifying Buddhi gradually corrects that
Who will not correct? Oh, Antaryami. Why Antaryami? The God, I mean the deity whom he is worshipping, obviously will do it. But the thing is, provided he has faith. If he has 100% faith that whatever I do, some or the other, the Lord whom I am worshipping will correct me if necessary through somebody, maybe some other human, because he cannot, obviously, they have not reached a state where the Lord will direct. But what the essence of what Ashokananji said was that here you cannot go wrong, isn't it? If you do it with a worship, if you do it just to please the boss, then it will not help you. But out of fear, you always do good things, correct things because of some fear that the boss will dismiss you. But if you do it as a worship, then that form of worship is better, because he has sent a boss to check whether you are doing it perfectly. That is the idea. You should take it in that spirit. Not that every pujari will make a mistake. But he says there is a chance, because you can be unmindful of many things and not know it. Whereas if you are unmindful, even for one stroke of the typewriter, you will make some mistake, or computer. So that mistake will be caught. Somebody will catch it, isn't it? So you have not been perfect in your worship. If you have done it with devotion as karma yoga, then if this is for spiritual people. I'm talking of, if you take it as a spiritual sadhana, he was just trying to explain the importance of trying to manifest the divinity in all circumstances of life, not just the worship room. Because he knew right from beginning, time immemorial, the worship room has fascinated everyone. And as a result, all the years and years of puja has not changed the person. The people who worshipped in Dakshineshwar, they went and kicked Sri Ramakrishna out of jealousy. So is that what transformation should take place if you are worshipping Ma Kali? It should be purifying if you have done it with the right spirit. The idea is living consciously. If we are conscious of the presence of Mother, as Sri Ramakrishna was, then you will not make mistake. Then worship can change you. But very often it's reduced to a mere ritual with nobody to supervise, because it's between you and your God. Isn't it? Who watches your puja? When you do puja, you are doing with your in front of your God. Whether you do it correctly, whether you do it in a hurry, whether you have to catch a bus or train and then you do something because you have to do out of fear. So many things can motivate you. That is the idea. It's not that worship is definitely a wonderful way, because there you have a better chance to think of the presence of God than other places. Other places you may think of the boss, you may think of other people. Whereas here there is no one but the Lord whom you are directing your worship to. But provided you are conscious of that fact. Unconsciously, it is easy to make lapses when you are not conscious that you are worshipping the Lord, but doing it as a puja or as a ritual. Yeah. Whose name? Okay, okay. The question was asked by Sharon, who, yeah. Otherwise, the online people will not understand. Hmm.
How do we know where we are in the scale of living consciously?
Okay.
Assuming that yoga club is 10 and
Yeah.
somewhere we are starting. How
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
know whether we are going up or down or where exactly we are?
Yes. That's a good question. One of the main things is if you follow the teachings of Christ, he says, "Judge not that ye be not judged." And that includes ourselves. We should not judge others, nor should we judge ourselves, our spiritual progress. Once the same question was asked by someone to Holy Mother, said, "How do I know I have made spiritual progress?" So she said, should you judge yourself? You just go on doing what you have to do, because that's not going to change anything. You are only going to become better by living consciously or by living uh, with a spiritual centered life when you lead. That means living consciously. So that spiritual centered life, once you have decided what sadhana you want to be, of course you need a guru, you need some scriptural support, you follow the great masters. So when you do all these things, pretty well know the path. Now, how far you are, now it's a very relative term. We cannot compare. We cannot compare with anyone, even among the direct disciples. They later were told by Sri Ramakrishna that each one is following his own path in his own way. So it is very difficult. So how consciously we are living? One thing is there. When you are living consciously, two tests are there, according to Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga. First thing is that when you are approaching that universal consciousness, the first thing that happens in any path, using any yoga, bhakti yoga, is the gradual attenuation or maybe reduction of the ego. So the more you see the divine consciousness everywhere, the less you are conscious. Ego means what? You are conscious of your personality, your body, your mind, your beauty, or whatever it is. We are conscious, so conscious that that's why people don't like people who have inflated egos, because he's thinking only of himself. Whereas there is divinity everywhere. So the first sign, which of course Ranganathanji also said, it will make you more unselfish and more less egoistic. You won't take the changing things of life very seriously. The people who have egos, they suffer most. They say, "Oh, why should he tell these words to me?" Whereas the egoless person, no matter whatever people may say, he will just ignore it because his ego is not hurt. He doesn't accept what the others have said because he sees the same spirit. In fact, Buddha's main sadhana is that. It is this ego, which is because you identify with your mind and the body, that gives rise to misery. That is the root cause of all misery. So the more you manifest this, more you live consciously, the less the ego should become less and less. That's one of the signs. And more you become more unselfish as a consequence. As a corollary, a person who has less ego, he is more adjustable, he gets along well with everyone because that ego is not causing any obstruction. So if you are really living consciously, because that same consciousness within you is outside of you. So there's nothing to have some pride that I am better than him or he's better, or even that inferiority complex will not be there. Because he is a wave, I am also a wave, small or big. But if you identify with the ocean, then you are the same. There is a beautiful sentence. In fact, in one of the youths, maybe he read only that portion from Swami Vivekananda and he gave a nice speech in one of the events in London. That young boy, he said, "Look at the ocean, not at the waves." He said he liked that quotation. Everybody was asked to speak on one theme, but he liked this. He said, "Look at the ocean, not at the waves." Our suffering is because of the waves. We look at the waves, a big wave, you are afraid of a big wave which will come and engulf a smaller wave. Or if you are a big wave, you will think of engulfing other waves. So, in either case, ego, inferiority, or superiority, both will cause problems because these waves are not going to last. However turbulent the ocean may be, the waves are going to collapse and finally they will merge into the ocean. So, Swamiji, very wonderful sentence he just mentioned. I think it is in his Jnana Yoga. He says, "Look at the ocean, not the waves." So, ocean is calm, peaceful, but the wave has a very inflated ego. I am a big wave, you are a small wave, I'll come and finish you. Or a small ego where you are afraid of the big ego of big people. So, in either case, the ego and lessness is one. If you are one with the consciousness, if you are one with the ocean, then you are less with the wave. Sit down, sit down.
So, two clarification questions. The first one follows on.
One after another. Don't ask all together. Yeah.
First one, as it follows on. from
Oh,
this.
first question. Yeah.
What sort of witnessing or as a sanctuary the way and we get thoughts or feelings that arise that are perhaps unconducive or even overtly positive thoughts.
Keep it the mic near.
Are there situations where we should intervene or should we literally just witness these with a view that
When others are doing that.
others, with ourselves and
Yes. So that depends on the situation. The question is, Tushar, na? Tushar. So Tushar is asking a question when things are not going wrong or going well outside of you and when you're dealing with other people. So what is the right thing to do? Just avoid making any comments or just avoid the whole thing or intervene. That's your idea, isn't it? Yes. So that depends on the context. Now, if you ask a mother, if you have the attitude of a mother towards the child, then it would be very bad if she doesn't intervene. Seeing the child trying to play with the fire, you can't be neutral. The attitude is important. You see, the aptitude, the situational awareness, all these things are there. But if your idea is that you want to consciously do what you think is right or what you think is good for both the other person and yourself, spiritually as well as otherwise, then you have to do it. So that has to be taken case by case. You can't say whether you should interfere. Many times it would be better if you don't interfere. Certain things that do not concern, or you know for certain that your interference is not going to solve the problem, then better don't interfere. You understood that? So there's no hard and fast rule. It depends on the situation and depends on the consequences.
so just to clarify, so there has to be maybe a small amount of thinking involved or analysis.
Small amount of?
Thinking to know.
Yes. Not small amount. Huge amount of thinking. Small amount will lead to wrong decisions. You have to deliberate. That is why we pray to Gayatri Mantra is make my wisdom or buddhi better and better. So the more you think properly or rightly, the less the chances of error. So it's not a question of thinking less. After having exhausted all your rational capacity, then you have to do whatever comes to your mind, because beyond that you cannot think. Otherwise, you'll go round and round and not take any decision. So sometimes you have to just take a decision.
Just to clarify, when you mentioned about the four layers of the mind,
Hmm.
we have
Oh,
cognition, emotion, willpower,
and the fourth one I did not mention, but that is part of Raj Yoga, the control of the mind. See, when the thoughts are controlled, there's a strange kind of power that is released, which we may say your consciousness is awakened. So that power of consciousness, which leads to direct experience, is the fourth power. But that is only for a refined mind. That is difficult to understand. For a common mind, will have these three faculties. But as he progresses spiritually, then he practices Raj Yoga or meditation. That's why meditation is given so much of importance in all the traditions. That when you meditate, what happens is your thoughts decrease. When you control the thoughts, you can see things clearly. Raj Yoga, the example is given of a uh, pond where somebody is throwing stones. And when they constantly stones are being thrown on the surface of the water, you can't see what is below, isn't it? When they stop throwing stones, the water is calm, then you see things very clearly. They're seen because water is transparent. So also our mind, when you control the thoughts, you generate a strange power known as buddhi. That is the essence of all mantras, all spiritual practice is to awaken the buddhi, to make you see things clearly. So that faculty is the most important faculty. In fact, that's why they say it is above the mind. Three faculties, which you mentioned just now, thinking, feeling, and willing, they belong to ordinary men or ordinary beings and also animals. They also have a little bit of thinking, little bit of emotions, little bit of willpower. They have plenty of willpower. So animals, we share these three qualities with them. But what makes us superior is to this reflexive capacity of the mind, which can think of the consequences, make choices, make the right choices. So all this thing is known as viveka buddhi. So it is buddhi or dhi or viveka. So they are all synonyms. That is the fourth capacity. But according to Vedanta, it's superior than the manas. That is why I didn't say it is a fourth quality. It is something which you develop when you refine your mind. When the three faculties are dealt with properly, then the fourth faculty awakens as a result of. But main and the best and the quickest way is through meditation. Because there you directly, when you stop the waves, you see the bottom clearly. All you have to do is stop throwing stones, reduce the turbulence of the mind. Then what is at the bottom, you don't have to worry, you can see. Okay?
Our everyday life, the people who is success in their life. So on that time, that only people like they are very success. So on that days, what you will take is a consistency is working, how big they are working in there.
So when this question, you have to define what success means. Are you talking of material success?
Yes.
Then it's different, because spiritual success, uh, it can motivate you to do better, then it is good. But material success will increase your competition and will make you miserable. So success has to be appreciated. But if you feel jealous because somebody is more spiritual than you, then that competition is healthy. Then you will focus on, oh no, I will also become a little more spiritual. See, I'm wasting my time. She is or he is meditating so much. So that kind of success, if you consider spiritual success, then jealousy is not a problem in that spiritual success. In fact, Thakur used to say, your anger, your jealousy, envy, everything should be spiritualized. How to do it? You if you have a tendency to be angry on people or in things which you don't like, then you express that anger and you suffer. That is because of your mind. But he says, direct that anger on God. Tell him, you see, these people are so spiritual and I am so material. I'm so getting upset at silly things, and see how calm they are. So that anger that you have revealed, even Thakur used to say, you have revealed yourself to Ram Prasad and all the saints, and you are not revealing yourself. So that anger, that success of others, that jealousy, that is not harmful. But if it is material, then it is definitely harmful. So that's the idea. How you are asking how to deal with it. How to deal means you have to stop comparing yourself. The only way is for material success. First, you have to understand that it is not competition may not be good in the long run. Though you can't avoid that because we are living in this world when everybody around you is running after success. You can't say that you just be happy with what you get. So you will also, till your karma is over, we will also run after success. Everybody will run after success. But then at certain stage of life, there's some disillusionment comes. You understand that this has been just draining me. I am running after somebody, then I find somebody more successful than me. And obviously, this life is too short to be more successful than all the successful people. Maybe one day you might reach it, but whether you will reach it or not, or whether that effort is worth making, that you have to decide. So if you still feel that somebody is more successful than you and it is making you restless, then in a way, whether anybody tells you, whether Gita tells you, Krishna tells you, or Ramakrishna tells you, you will run after that success. And that is what Arjuna did. He said, first you finish. You want to fight. You have come here to get back what was rightfully yours. They have deprived you. You have come with so much anger. Now you can't just say, I don't want success. I'll go into the forest. He said, you can't do it. Your very nature will make you run after success. But, but he said, when everything sarva dharman parityajya mamekam saranam vraja. After telling 18 chapters, first telling him to fight, and he is totally confused when it comes to the 18th chapter. So in the 18th chapter, he tells sarva dharman parityajya. First he says you follow your swadharma. So he is giving all the options. Krishna is a very great psychologist. He gives all the options, knowing fully well that Arjuna will do what he wants to do, in spite of. It's like Duryodhana saying, Janami dharmam nachame pravati. Because his samskaras, he can read his mind that this person has fought all his life, he has prepared to fight, and now you say, don't fight, I'll not fight. It's not going to happen. So it's okay. Other success will motivate you to be more successful. But there will be a limit when you understand that no matter how much you are materially successful, somebody is already ahead of you. Then you find that it's like waiting for the ocean to stop the waves. Thakur said, I'll learn swimming. Somebody told him, I will learn swimming when all the waves stop. It's not going to happen. So you have to start doing what you feel you should do. And when the world gives us a few blows, because you're not going to succeed always, no matter how much you try, you will either blame God, you will blame luck and all those things. But success cannot be planned. It is destined. Something in our past karma will get according to that. But to understand that will take a lot of time. Once you have understood, there is no problem.
So perhaps consciousness is usually related to awareness. And as you were saying, that in Buddhist tradition, they focus too much on the
Yeah.
awareness and the mindfulness part. And when you said that they are focusing too much, at least I assume that is they have stretched it too far that it is not
Yeah,
conducive to their spiritual development.
no. It's definitely conducive, but for many people it may be at a higher end of spiritual life. You see, many people are not used to that. To be fully focused on awareness. That's why our Hindu religion is more balanced. It has a little of karma yoga, a little of bhakti yoga. Because there are emotions. You cannot be one sided. Of course, I'm not saying Buddha is one sided. He had a wonderful heart. He was a bhakta. I'm talking of the Buddhist practices. Don't mistake. Buddha had a wonderful heart. He was full of love, compassion for people, animals. So I'm not talking of Buddha. But what I'm saying is subsequent Buddhism, like subsequent Hinduism, became very ritualistic. Even today, it is very ritualistic. So much so that spirituality is somewhat lost. To be very honest, every religion has a good side, has a bad side. But too much of everything is bad. So this awareness, according to uh, our mental makeup, Swami Vivekananda believed in harmony of four yogas. That is why he said, since you have four faculties, not just the faculty to meditate, it may be very good for a Rajogi or Patanjali. That's why they say Patanjali and Buddhism are very close, same philosophy almost. So they even say Patanjali took all the ideas from Buddha. But they say we had ideas much before. Patanjali came later, but his masters and his tradition is very ancient. So whatever it may be, the idea is yoga, Raj Yoga or the yoga of meditation is emphasized by Buddhism more than any other religion. For example, Christianity emphasizes bhakti. So they have prayer, they don't have meditation. They don't have this awareness because they have a concept of God, the Father in heaven, or Jesus, the Son of God. So we have our own gods. Everybody has their own God. So there is this prayer. Even Islam, for example, this prayer, dua, and all those things they do. So prayer is emphasized in some religions. Buddhism, because he found that too much of discussion on my God, your God, and fighting about gods, he thought temporarily let us keep the gods away and focus on our mind, which is the real problem. So Buddha said, your mind is your real problem. If you set it right, then you don't need a god to solve the problem. Your own mind will solve all your problems. You reach nirvana, you reach mukti, Advaita also. They say you don't need a personal god. But what is the harm? Sri Ramakrishna said, have everything. Have a personal God, develop the heart, develop the karma yoga. So, what I implied was not that it is bad, but they emphasized one thing to the, mm, I mean, compared to other things which could, but because their philosophy did not permit it. There's no personal God in Buddhism. In fact, there's no God. There's no God in Buddhism. You ask any Buddhist monk, there's no idea of God also.
In this case, then, if I have to be aware of something and be conscious of something, then what should I be more aware of? Is it that what I'm doing, what I am thinking, is it the thoughts which I should be focused on?
No.
That time
The
conscious
content. No, so the thing is to be aware of something other than it is. I used a wrong word. Actually, the word, exact word in English, nearest word, you can't say exact, is self awareness. So, to be aware of the objects around you, that is also awareness. You are aware of the thief coming in, you're so aware, alert, that is alertness. So, that is not going to lead. This self awareness of the self within, the pure self, which is not tainted by anything, the pure consciousness, when you are self aware, I should correct myself. This awareness meditation is actually self awareness meditation, but they don't have the idea of self. That is the problem with in Vedanta. They say Atman alone is everything. Atman is equal to Brahman. That is the supreme consciousness is the individual consciousness. So it becomes a little easy. But Buddhism says we do not know what the soul is. Atman they don't accept. They just focus on awareness. if you had attended my previous class, I told you there are three types of meditation. One is objective meditation, which 99% of the people follow that. You see, it's easy. There is an object. There is a Krishna, there is a Rama, there is a Buddha, or any other god and goddess, or any form or any symbol. So you pray to that. Or maybe it's a impersonal power, like the Sikh people and the Sikhs believe in all-pervading reality. But still they say Nam Shabad Kirtan, they do. They repeat the name. So, but if you go to Islam and other things, they call Allah something who is a all merciful, having all the thousand qualities, but he doesn't have a form. So, whether it is form or formless, you can divide meditation into subjective or objective meditation when there is some object, Father in heaven, Krishna, Rama, any form you like, you meditate. There is a subjective meditation which is like not Buddhism, but Advaita or Raman Maharshi and all. They said there is a self deep within which is never changing. The self is seeing the whole universe, good or bad, in whatever way, but the self is constant. When I was young, I had a self. When I grow up, I have a self, which is unchanging witness to all that is seen. So that is known as subjective meditation. You don't meditate on an objective God or reality. You meditate on subjective reality. Whereas Buddhism had a strange position because he said people are all quarreling. They are quarreling because they said, no, this object, my object is the best. I believe Krishna is the only God. It cannot be Rama, it cannot be Devi. Or so the Devi, they'll say Kali alone should be worshipped. So this objective meditation led to a lot of clashes. Buddha had understood that. And he saw that this is leading nowhere. So he said, why do you need a God? So somebody asked him, do you believe in God? He said, did I say I believe in God? He said, okay, you don't believe in God. He said, did I say I don't believe in God? The idea was that he didn't want us to waste our time, whether the object is formless, form, and other things. Then coming to the Atman. Now, people were discussing, the Advaitins were saying the self is all pervading. Somebody said, no, the self, Purusha, there are hundreds of Purushas. According to yoga, they don't agree with Advaita. Advaita says Atman is equal to Brahman. They will say, no, each Purusha, each conscious principle is separate. Prakriti is what doing all the drama outside. Nature. The nature, that changing nature is outside. So there was a quarrel for this subject also. Then Buddha thought of a wonderful idea. He said, the quarrel is because each person is having a different objective God. And each one has a different subjective conception of himself. So forget the subject, forget the object. Whatever be the nature of subject, whatever be the nature of object, the world, and the God that is ruling the world, the connection between subject and object is what is causing misery. So it is known as process. So whatever be the subject you believe in, whatever idea of self you have, whatever idea of God you have, all of you agree on one thing, that there should be a connection. There is a process which links the subject to the object. So if I see the world as a good world, it is for me, the world is bad. Somebody will say the world is very good. I see only good things. So what the subject thinks about the object, there is some process going on. So there is a process connecting the two. So Buddha said, instead of quarreling about the subject and object, why don't you see what is the problem in this process? Just focus on the process, then you will realize. So it is known as process meditation. It's not used by Buddhists. Awareness meditation, mindfulness meditation. Mindful of what? You're just mindful. You're not bothered about whether you're doing gardening or cleaning a place, or you are reading some scripture. Every time you do, you are focused on the mindfulness, the connection, the process that is happening. And you want to make that, purify your mind by refining that process. So you develop higher and higher awareness, and it works. It works. Otherwise, Buddhism would not have been a great religion. So all religions, all approaches work. The process meditation solves a major problem. The first is existence of God. Which God My God, your God, no quarrels. There's no need to bother about God. There's no need to bother about your nature of yourself, whether one Purusha, 100 Purushas, or only one Atman. So Advaitins again will quarrel. So Advaitins and others, they'll quarrel about the nature of the soul. So he says, why do you bother about something which is not concerning you? The only thing that concerns you is the connection. And that connection is happening in the mind. So your mind is happy or mind is unhappy. So if you want to be happy, if you want nirvana, then do the awareness meditation. That's the idea.
So then I will come back to that question. So when we are saying what we should be conscious of, it is not the
Yes,
subject,
all the three.
be
Nah,
subject. So
all the three.
should be doing?
Yeah, consciousness of the subject. If you are a subjective meditation follower of subjective meditation, you should be conscious of the object. If you think the object is everything in your life, Krishna is all in all. Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam, they say. He's eternal Krishna. It doesn't bother whether there is Rama or there is Devi or anything. You believe the eternal Krishna, that's why they call it Krishna consciousness. It's not Krishna, the Krishna that we see in the painting. It's the consciousness behind Krishna. It's the consciousness behind Ma Kali. It's the consciousness behind all the gods. And consciousness behind even Allah and all the. It is, we are worshipping that consciousness. So,
Is it paradoxical? Because if consciousness is falling into this thought, say as fan or Krishna. Krishna is also a concept
Yeah,
in
yeah.
itself. That the consciousness is falling on that thought, which I think
Yeah, but you are not.
my consciousness.
Yes, I agree. But you should not see that as discrete consciousness. You are seeing the fan as a fan. But as I told you, that wonderful sentence of Swamiji, look at the ocean, not the waves. See, our problem is we are thinking of, should we be conscious of the fan? Should we be conscious of the human being? No, you should be conscious of the consciousness. That is what awareness is. You should be, yeah, what is falling is exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll conclude now and we'll have meditation. Online is there? Just one.
Somebody on YouTube asked a question.
Hmm.
Is it good to retreat in hardship and then return into comfort?
Yes.
Strengthen the mind and body. I repeat, is it good to retreat in hardship?
Yeah.
Hard work, and then return into comfort
Yeah.
to strengthen mind?
Yeah. So alternate activity and rest. Swami Vivekananda has recommended that because sometimes we have a tendency to burn out. So alternate repose, that is sometimes you have to withdraw. That is the very idea of retreat has come from the army idea. You know, an army, when the battle became too intense, even in Mahabharata, they had a rule that after sunset there will be no battle. And they followed it. Of course, now they don't follow it. And after sunrise only the battle can begin. So that retreat period is what makes them fit to fight the next day. So the question that whether we should retreat when things are bad, yes, that is a good idea because uh, every time you may not have the energy or the capacity to fight. So fight or flight, Swamiji used to say. You have to see, you have to use the path of least resistance. So if fighting makes you more miserable, then better avoid. That's the idea. So how much of that is, sometimes it may be weakness that you just want to not to fight, and that's why the wrong use of ahimsa is uh, sometimes given as an example, that every time it's not good to use flight. When you can fight, you fight, but when you cannot, it's good to retreat and strengthen yourself and then fight. Yeah.
Is that not the example that Krishna was called Ranthod, which means that retreated?
Yes. Yeah. He had no ego. Yes.
That
Yes. He lived the principles that he taught many times. He uh, because he was sensible, he knew there are certain things you cannot change. So those things he had to change by fight. For example, you could not convince Duryodhana to give up even 5 villages. So their fight was the only option. But not that he was a warmonger. He gave them a chance. He said, just give 5 villages to this. Let them lead a decent life at least. So that much of uh, negotiation he was prepared to do. But if you are unreasonable, then there is no other option. You have to fight. So okay. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Hmm? Necessary? Time is there. You can conclude. I'll forget. Huh? You want? A little bit. Okay.
I just want those students to be involved in education, so they only like to sit on.
No, no, it's better on the chair. Those who want, of course. I'm not teaching any asanas or yoga. So you see, I brought something very nice, but that will take a lot of time, maybe in some other future retreat. You all know in monasteries, we normally, in most of the monasteries, there is some kind of regimentation. That's morning prayers, as far as possible, especially if you go to Belur Math and all, everything runs with clock-like precision. And we can afford to do that because unless there are pressing problems. But people have an idea that it's not possible at home with the present working climate and culture where people are working from home, changing jobs, and the nature of the job, and all those things. But more or less, the principle is same. In meditation, there are different meditations to during different situations, during different times of the day, and everything was very well planned because I think there was more leisure and life was more systematic in the Vedic age, and it was not flooded with social media and other things in those days. So people had a lot of leisure, they could plan. But anyway, we have to make a compromise. So some essential meditation, at least early in the morning. And these are the two times which Holy Mother Sharda Devi said. Definitely everybody has to get up at some point unless one has insomnia and doesn't sleep. But most of us, ha- as far as possible, try to wake up at some fixed time, maybe because of some alarm or other things, but you have to. So it would be nice if 15 minutes is the bare minimum. When you get up and when you maybe just have your ablutions and you're a little, you feel fresh, not sleepy. And the next best time, according to Holy Mother, is before you sleep. These two times don't change normally. You may sleep early, you may sleep late. But before going to bed, it's a good idea to do some kind of meditation. Not reading, I'm telling books you can read during the day. But some repetitive prayer, if you are lucky enough to have a well defined mantra or some prayer, uniform prayer, don't look for variety. In this, variety is not a very good option. In life, variety of spices, food, and other things, you need change. Variety may be good for the tongue and for making a spicy life. But for meditation, it is monotony which helps more because the very essence of meditation is to reduce the number of thoughts. So if you indefinitely go on increasing all gods are equally capable, all modes of meditation are equally effective, but changing is not a good idea. It's like digging wells in different areas, and you end up digging 10 feet in each area. And instead of that, if you dig in 40 feet in one particular area, it's better than digging four wells. Just dig one well. So that is the idea behind all our meditation. So with that in mind, uh, or at least for a sufficient length of time, you practice something before chanting something else. It looks monotonous. People want variety, want change. They are not happy with one particular practice. But the real secret is in repeating the same thing over and over again, because that's the only way you can control the mind. So here, we will not meditate. We are just meditating on an idea, certain ideas, especially for those who don't have a fixed uh, method of meditation given by a competent teacher. For those people, for a general meditative awareness, which may lead to a deeper meditation, we'll do this. So, the first theme which all of us should meditate upon, one of the important themes, that is living consciously, is to be spiritually minded is life, to manifest more of spirit than matter. So, gradually, definitely it is a very gradual process, thinking or meditating on this idea, though this idea is there in Shweta Ashvatar Upanishad, Kathopanishad. So I'll just read from the Upanishad, two Upanishads, very important Upanishads, where the gist of how to meditate and where to meditate and what should be the attitude with which one should meditate. So, meditation on to be spiritually minded is life. So, our whole life has meaning if we are conscious or spiritually conscious. Now, Kathopanishad, I'll read this verse, then we'll just close our eyes and meditate for a minute or so on the meaning of this. I'll first chant the Sanskrit and then I'll read the English meaning. Om Paranchikhani Vetrunat Swayam Bhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratman Kaschid Dhirah Antaratmanamaikshat Avruttachakshu Amrutattvamichan. So, Yama is telling Nachiketa, the young boy Nachiketa, the self-existent one, that is Swayambhu, God, who is the self-existing consciousness within us, has so created the living beings like us that their senses, unfortunately, are always peeping outside, looking outwards. And they do not see the spiritual self within. Rare is that wise person, Kaschid Dhiraha, who desirous of immortality, looks inward, realizes his spiritual self, and becomes free forever. The way to immortality is this inner approach. To be constantly ridden by the body-mind is death. To be devoted to the spirit or consciousness, to be animated and motivated in all our actions by the spirit consciousness is real life. According to Saint Paul, to be materially minded is death. To be spiritually minded is life and peace. So let us turn our thoughts inward, and for a moment let us hold on to the divine spirit shining within us. Know for certain that this divine consciousness or spirit is the very center of our personality. It is this divine spirit that is animating the body, the senses, and the mind to function. This is the principle of consciousness on which we have to meditate. This consciousness does not undergo change, but it witnesses all the changes and remains ever peaceful and blissful. Because we forget the inner spirit and consciousness and focus our mind on external things and become immersed in them, we become subject to growth and decay, birth and death, sorrow and misery. But when we meditate, we withdraw our thoughts, gather our scattered feelings and ideas, and focus on the pure spirit consciousness within. Then we realize our true nature, the true spiritual self, and become immortal. Now we'll come and try to understand two verses from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Swami Vivekananda chanted this in the Parliament of Religions and then translated the Sanskrit verse into English. Shrunvantu vishve amrutasya putraha आये धामानि दिव्यानि तस्तुः वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात्. So a rishi who in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad who realized this wonderful light of consciousness, just as Vishwamitra Rishi, due to a sudden experience and revelation, uttered the famous Gayatri Mantra, which we did in the beginning. Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. So Shrunvantu Vishwe has the same meaning, and we'll see the meaning and then meditate and then conclude. This is Swami Vivekananda's translation. Hear me, O children of immortal bliss, those who dwell in this universe and those who dwell in the worlds beyond. Hear me. I have realized that Supreme Being, the Supreme Light, the Self-Effulgent One, beyond all darkness, Tamasap Parastat, Aditya Varnam, resplendent like the glorious sun. By knowing him alone, one goes beyond death, reaches immortality. There is no other way out of death. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So this is the preparation for meditation. When the first step that we take is understand that the true consciousness or bliss is within. So meditation on these two verses now prepare one's mind for the real meditation, that is a higher meditation, which is meditation on the form that you like most. If someone has got a definite system of meditation or mantra given by one's guru and a form which it represents, the mantra represents, the same essence of what we read is to be imagined. Just as the sun dispels all darkness of ignorance, whichever Ishta mantra or the mantra that has been chosen for you and the form that is represented by that mantra, so that visualization and the mantra, the sound, the name and the form, they will merge when you practice the mantra, the name, simultaneously trying to take the help of the form, who is like this resplendent sun, who is always seated in the lotus of your heart, the center of your consciousness, and dispelling all darkness that results in misery because of our outward tendencies. We don't see the blissful, peaceful Lord who is of the nature of pure consciousness, truth and bliss, already seated in our heart, established in our heart. So once the waves of the mind calm down, then you see in resplendent glory the Ishta sitting in the heart. So this is the second stage. The first stage teaches you pratyahara, slow withdrawal, slow, because we are used to extrovert ideas, extrovert actions. So naturally, our life demands that we are extroverts. So the only time, early in the morning or late in the evening, when you can temporarily switch off for a few minutes at least, and imagine that all the outward going tendencies and the actions, the thoughts that have engaged my whole day without rest, early in the morning before I start, late in the evening before going to sleep, I just withdraw everything, focus on the Ishta in the heart, or the reality, concept of reality, the shining sun of light, conscious light of consciousness in the heart, and allow all our hopes, our fears, our joys, our sorrows, everything to rest in that unified consciousness. If you do that, especially at night, there is a chance that that mood lasts. Anyway, we have to sleep after that. So throughout the entire duration of the sleep, a few hours at least, the effects of meditation will be gradually seen or felt. And if you go without an agitated mind with this meditation, then you will find it very easy to have that same mood when you get up. So these, according to Holy Mother, are the best times when you take stock of your own life for a few minutes. It's not a question of hours, it's a question of few minutes every day, and which can be increased as and when we get more time. So this mantra you can remember, this Shvetashvatar Upanishad and Kathopanishad, Paranchi Khani, first it tells you that please stop this outward going tendency at least early in the morning and late at night, and think of the real purpose of life and try to remove the misery because of our outward tendencies. And even if I can't do it throughout the day, at least at night, just as the sun sets and there is calm and peace, you just withdraw into the Supreme Self, and that will give the true benefits, true results of meditation. So we'll conclude and meditate for 2-3 minutes and then finish this session. Om Bhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Switch it off.